So, all right. It's already past 5, so I think I will start with the introduction. So, a breaker of every stereotype one can give, except that he loves rice and wears glasses, Indonesian American Fiel Sahir is a writer, speaker, and podcaster hailing from New York City. He began the Between Three Worlds podcast by building empathy through conversation. Conversations with people of staggeringly different points of view united to connect the world in their own special way. Guests have included actors, writers, TED Talk speakers, and others. He holds a BM in classical guitar performance from the New England Conservatory and a master's from the Robert Schumann Hochschule in Düsseldorf, Germany. He has contributed to Wikitongues and is the director of international outreach. Please give a warm round of applause for Fiel Sahir.
Every human being has intrinsic worth, which means we also know that every language, every human being again, and every culture has intrinsic value. Now, unfortunately, the news is, we do have a clicker. Fortunately, we have a clicker. The bad news is not everyone believes the same things. So, that's right. So that means within the next 80 to 100 years, also known as 2100 or 2120, half of the world's languages will be gone. So 7,000 down to 3,500 thereabouts if we are not careful. And so, as I said, do we really believe that every human being, every culture, every language is sacred and has intrinsic worth? And what this means is that it's dying at a rate which is so staggering. Every 2 weeks, one elder dies, which means the language goes with it. Every 2 weeks. I don't even know how much muscle I can get in 2 weeks. So it's a fortnight, 14 days, whatever. 2 weeks, a language is gone. But then there's people like you, polyglots, people that care about the world, people that think that languages do have value, that people do have value, cultures have value, and you're here to be a game changer. You're here to change the trajectory of time. And that's where Wikitongues comes in. Wikitongues also believes these things. Wikitongues shows and cares for these people and says, you have a voice, you need a platform, here it is. And how we do that is we work together with people that we would otherwise have no reason to talk to, people from indigenous areas, like in the Amazon. With this picture, we have Daniel Udell, who is our director and founder. And he's an awesome guy. If you ever come down to New York City, come and meet us for coffee. And here he is at an artisans convention of indigenous people from around the world recording a language. And this is what we do. And how we do it, there are 4 basic steps as to how people from Wikitongues, polyglots, should be connecting to people around the world. And number 1 is expand your comfort zone. Now, I say expand because it gives a different meaning to the whole comfort zone thing. So for me, I should introduce myself now. My name is Fiel Sahir, as he mentioned, born to a father from Jakarta and a mother from Bandung in Indonesia, in Portland, Oregon, and raised in New York. My comfort zone was not really existent. It was constantly being pushed and everything expanded, for lack of a better word. And that is the story of everyone in the world. Whenever they move somewhere, their comfort zones are being forcefully expanded. Forcefully. Because they're moving to a new place, a new country, new language, and they have to deal with it. And that's why, and here's the thing, those stories are not being told unless you're already in the circle. Like, have you ever heard the story of the Tibetan who decided to leave Tibet in the cold snow at like 12 at night because he was going to get shot by soldiers during the day? Or have you heard the stories of the Vietnamese boat people that came afterwards? This is why we talk to people. This is why we expand our comfort zone. And the word expand is because maybe you don't like sushi today. You try it. Then it suddenly becomes part of you. Then next week you try rendang from Indonesia. And a week after that you try haring or something from the Netherlands. And you realize that these things are now part of your vocabulary of things that you like to do. And so, but that wasn't always the case for me. So I'm the one with the yellow hat up there. Does this have a laser? No, it doesn't. That's okay. You know where I am. I was very upset in that photo. I did not want to be there. And yeah, so Indonesia is a very multicultural place, and I was just not having it. And then I realized that around the age of 10, during a car ride, that when you see the world through one color, the color of English, things get a bit dry. Things get a bit boring. That's why I love Bob Ross. Happy trees. But yeah, so I realized that every language is a color, and every color that you add to your paintings, you can see so much more. And so that's when I decided to begin learning Indonesian. But of course it wasn't easy, and eventually I adapted and became an overly annoying patriotic guy that wears batik shirts everywhere he goes, as you can see. And yeah, I am an Indonesian American. I realized that these two cultures that I embody have worth and value. And that's why I'm here sharing that with you, that there are other cultures that need this recognition. Cultures that are in countries that are big like Indonesia or in other places. And so how we do that as well is not just expanding our comfort zone, but by making time. And what does that mean? Maybe for you that means going to your local bodega, if you have them where you are, it's a deli, and talking to the Dominican guy that makes your sandwiches every day. Or talking to the Pakistani guy who owns the gas station down the street. That's making time. That's expanding your comfort zone. Realizing that just because you don't speak that language doesn't mean you can't talk to them. And so this is me and my friend Caroline Kaspers. She's from Roermond in the Netherlands, and she speaks Limburgish. And this was at Bratislava last year, 2017. Yeah, and so here's a short clip. Let's see if it works. This is a good sample of what we do at Wikitongues. And if you notice, that's Benny Lewis in the corner.
Hoi, mijn naam is Caroline. Ik kom uit Remung, dat ligt in Midden-Limburg in Nederland, in de provincie Limburg. Ja, ik ga dus eigenlijk dialect, dat is mijn eerste taal wat ik heb geleerd. Ja, ik ben dus opgegroeid ook, geboren in Sittard en opgegroeid in een klein dorpje bij Remung in de buurt. Ja, dus tot mijn 4e jaar heb ik...
So obviously you can watch that on YouTube because YouTube's free, so don't worry, except if you're in China. But no politics here. So each time we take the time to care and speak to someone, that shows that they are important, right? That's telling them that you were worth my time and I believe your story is powerful. And you know, she doesn't get to speak Limburgish every day except with her mom. And then here comes this random Indonesian who was colonized by her country X many years ago. And is like, hey, I think your culture is cool. I think you have a story that is worth listening to, worth caring about. That's empowerment. And that's why LangFest is special, because that's why we're all gathered here, to have people from all over the world that care and believe that all these cultures are sacred and have intrinsic worth. And I mean, how many of you come from different countries that people don't really know, right? Or places that, you know, people kind of know, but then they get your capital city wrong and all those things, and how does that irk you? But how does it feel when they get your capital city correct? When they say a food that you never would expect someone to know? It's just amazing. So going on with language videos. Oops. So we don't just believe in minority languages like Limburgish that are kind of recognized. We also believe in caring for those in a more inclusive way, for people that do not speak with their mouths, but rather with their hands. And so this is the language Katakolok, which is from the island of Bali, where for some reason in this village there is a gene that has caused a sizable amount of the population to go deaf. We get enough ads from Bebo as it is. Have you been on CNN lately? But we also care for, here we go again, not just people that speak languages with their hands and minority languages, but we care for those languages that are not even minority. They're languages that people have never heard of. This is a language, it's called Nafasana, it's cut off. It's from Vanuatu, and it has never been recorded, so far as we know, by linguists. There is no documentation except this video.
Yo Mangsang Bay Lopez Abi den Emo Island Kalaski ere Not Evate Bonere Vanuatu Kino re island ngo angan nafnangan island ngo alao nafnanga ngo aku ko roara ngo atong roman leo lapa community.
Like, how cool is that, guys? You just listen to a language that most of the world will never ever have the chance to hear. But because of Wikitongues and the belief in the fact that languages are special and important, it's on the internet, free for you. Think about that. But it's a lot more than just these videos. There's a whole group of people behind it. People, community leaders, volunteers. So I forgot. Hello, check it. Yes. So I forgot to mention that we are spread across the world. I believe in how many countries now? It's like a lot. There's so many of us, and we have community leaders, people. There's one here actually, Jialin. She's the coordinator for Canada and South America right now, and then we have someone else in the States, someone in Benin. Soon, next month, there will be someone in charge of India. And what they do is they organize the various volunteers that we have throughout the world and start projects and work with local communities because we believe in the grassroots. We're not diminishing the work of linguists. Of course, documentation through dictionaries is all great, but sometimes there's a different sort of magic that happens when you work directly with the people and let them see that their language is not a fake version of the lingua franca or whatever the case may be. And there's just so much empowerment in that, in working with the local people, because then they can do it themselves. They don't need us to be there for them and to upload the videos on YouTube or whatever the case is. And then we work with organizations such as Polyglot Indonesia, of which I am the Director of International Relations between people. And Polyglot Indonesia is an organization of 10 chapters throughout the archipelago. Indonesia has anywhere from 13 to 17,000 islands, depending on who you're talking to. And we believe in empowering these polyglots, because they don't have gatherings out there that they can go to, nor do they have the money to go to them. And so they make these meetups once a week or however so many, as you guys know from like Mundolingo and things. And they meet up together and they get together to practice their languages, but also to share their culture, because all of these people come from a village somewhere that is obscure that nobody's heard of. The other cool thing about these videos and recording them is that we can upload them to the internet. And actually, as you can see, they get put into articles and you can just directly work with them, and that's available to the internet, on the internet for everyone. Same with the example of the Shetland Scots. This is probably one of our most viewed videos on the internet, I think, who's heard of Shetland Scots before? What, 2 people? Yeah, so, and this is a polyglot room. Can you imagine everyone else? I mean, people don't even know that Scots exists. Yeah, expand your comfort zone, make time. And the third is ask questions. This is what we all should be doing as polyglots, as people, lovers of culture, lovers of language, is asking questions. So expand your comfort zone, making time, and asking questions, because when we do that, we tell people they are worth it, they're worth our time. Not our money, but worth our time. And so asking questions allows conversations to happen. Asking questions opens up people and their general assumptions. And also, you're giving the other person more of the work. You don't have to do so much of the work. Sometimes we come to people and expect that we have to give a speech like this, rather than just saying, hey, you're from this island of Vanuatu. Tell me about Vanuatu. I don't want to read a dictionary or Wikipedia. I'd rather ask you, because you are in front of me. Because it's all about loving your neighbor at the end of the day. Like, who is your neighbor? It's anyone you see around you. and just showing them again that they are worth your time. Let me tell you about Kunto. So he is our community leader in Indonesia and a part of Polyglot Indonesia as well. And in the island that he lives on called Kalimantan, which is part of Borneo as English speakers know it, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of languages, hundreds of languages throughout the island, but they're all known under one name. And that name is the Dayak language. Those are the people that have women that have earrings that go down to here because they put one ring at a time until they get old. And the more they have, the prettier they are. And that's the most typical, stereotypical thing that we associate with them. But Dayak, again, is an umbrella term. It doesn't actually encompass the truth. And so this is a picture of him in one of the villages in the village known as Sempatung in the Kabupaten Landak, so in the Landak Regency of Borneo, and they're speaking what's called Bahasa Be'i. It's an interesting name, and it has never been documented either. And that's the really cool thing is when we work with people that are grassroots, that are volunteers, it just gets the work done. And then we get to meet people that we would never otherwise meet. And I believe this is a village where it's a 10-hour walk to the nearest village. So that's why nobody's ever heard of them. And this is a screenshot of a video that's to come on the Wikitongues channel. His name is Samuel, and he's from South Kalimantan, and he speaks Bakambai, a language that we've also never heard of. And even more, these two women here, Albina and Donawati from South Kalimantan as well, and their mother tongue is Bedina. But they are all collectively called Dayak because it is just logically not economically smart to just start documenting languages, especially when the government could care less and not pay. And so let's say one day you wanted to help out Wikitongues and do something about it and talk to someone and record a video. Because that's all you have to do is just get in front of a camera or get someone else in front of a camera, hit play, and send it to us. And people get confused, they're like, what should I say? What should I do? And it's easy. All you have to do is just ask these questions. So these are some pictures I like to show people before I ask them whatever it is that they want to say to give them a prompt. And so I ask them, first of all, who they are, where they're from, some greetings in their language, talk about their music, talk about their traditional dances, their food, especially because we all love food, and their clothing. And of course, proverbs. Proverbs are good because it gets them into storytelling and an ending message. And of course, other than just expanding our comfort zone, making time and asking questions, we got to be contagious. Because if it just stays in this room in August, once a year in Montreal, what are we doing it for? Are we just doing it for ourselves, or are we caring for the world around us and actually believing that the world is important, that people are sacred, and that languages have intrinsic value? That's the question. So we got to be a bit more than just Americans or wherever from the West coming into Africa. You see, this is a mural that I was able to help and participate in painting when I was a teenager in Senegal. And what it represents is not that we're the saviors from the West coming in, but that we're bridges, that we're able to connect with people even though we may not have a common language other than the colonial one, or that there is something that binds us together as humans. And so there's so many things. I want to do a lot more Q&A, especially because we have Jilin here. And if you're curious, we will be recording videos of the languages that you guys speak. If you have minority languages or something you want to share outside, today, tomorrow, Sunday, whenever you want. And as mentioned, I am Fiel Sahir again. And I do have a podcast, Between Three Worlds, as I mentioned, interviewing people that have different points of view, that do different things, actors, writers, TikTok speakers, and I'm everywhere on the Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. We're having some interesting guests soon. And Daniel will be on there. Daniel Udell of Wikitongues will be interviewed, or has been interviewed and will be uploaded soon. But of course, again, it goes back to our main point, why we're all here, is because we believe in every language in the world, especially because half of them are going to be gone in the next 100 years. Some of us may not be around anymore, but it's just the thought of that should make our goosebumps up here. And so, yeah, stand with us, and we're here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Hi. First of all, I know you're legit because you kept the U in neighbor on your hat there, so thank you for preserving our spelling habits. Second of all, my actual question is, and I hope this isn't too personal, where do you guys get your funding? Like, how do you even power this project?
It's a very good question. Since I am actually just a contributor, I do not participate in the administration. But to record videos, you don't really need funding. All you need is a cell phone and a button to start play. And you just send that to Google. But from what I do know, we do get funding from certain organizations. So Daniel spends a lot of his time outside of his day job writing grant proposals. And since people see this and see this is a project worth investing in, they give us grants. And so we're sort of a Wikimedia organization, so we participate in that too. And so when you mention names like that, people start going, oh, yeah. Is that my answer? Okay.
You mentioned videos on the Wikitongues website and perhaps elsewhere as well. What other information are you trying to collect as you document these every language?
Good question. So for now, it's just videos and most importantly subtitles if we can get them, but of course it's not always possible. And the whole point, I should have mentioned that more, is awareness is the most important part because these languages will never, people can write dictionaries all they want, right, but nobody's going to buy them and they're not going to visit these places. But YouTube, everyone's always on YouTube. And so I think that's the most effective we can do for now. Yeah. There's a question up there on the top. Oh, okay.
Quick question. So in the very start of your presentation, you said 7,000 languages.
Yeah.
How do you define the difference between a dialect and a language? I mean, this is getting to very muddy territory, but in your perspective, especially when it comes to Wikitongues, some people might argue, oh no, this is not a language, it's just rather a lesser dialect and so forth. So curious on your feedback.
That's a good question. I would say it's actually, not to diminish the question, but it would technically be irrelevant for our mission because the point is to just share all of these things, right? So, because we also have people that will get upset if we call their language a language, or their government will get upset. Like nobody's ever going to be happy. So we just upload it saying speaking, Flams or speaking X, Y, and Z. So that's the most important for us is that. But of course, I understand. But again, it depends on which government you're talking to. You know the quote that a language is actually a dialect with an army and a navy. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'll go with a definition question too. How do you define a language that's endangered or that's going to die? Like, is there a number of speakers? Like, how do you define that?
Okay, that's fair. Would you say something or? Yeah, take the mic. Take the mic.
I studied linguistics a few years ago. If I remember correctly, there are some websites, for example, WALS, that has some index on the number of speakers relatively and how the language is building in the community. Is it how many children are speaking and are the parents teaching the children and the percentage of speakers in the community? So, some basic index like that. But it's a difficult question to say if a language is dying, and I actually don't like the term that endangered language or how many languages are going to die. I think it's not accurate because sometimes when you talk to the people, they're using the language in their community. I don't think it's dying or anything. It's just that some people, I guess it's more of emotional image to present that stimulate people or motivate people to be aware of these issues. So it's a dangerous term to say endangered language sometimes. Does it answer a little bit?
I was talking to someone upstairs, Gary, and he speaks Nahuatl, and he's from El Salvador, if I remember correctly. And he was saying at some point they were not speaking Nahuatl. So if you went to the village and asked them, do you speak Nahuatl? They would all say no because of persecution and stuff in the past. But eventually, within like 20, 30 years, you could hear it on the streets or so. I don't know the exact timeline because again, I just heard this today. But again, sometimes there are languages that are there. Like I know for a fact when I talk to Indonesians in my community and I ask them which languages they speak, they only say Indonesian. They don't say they speak Javanese or they speak X dialect of whatever because they won't consider that. They'll tell you that they speak another language. So for instance, the Manado people. Manado is a city in Indonesia, and they speak a version of Malay known as Manado Malay, but they actually also speak tribal languages depending on their village, but they never will tell you that. They just speak Manado Malay because that's what they use daily, and then they might not even say Manado, they speak Indonesian. So again, you just have to expand your comfort zone, ask questions, make time, and eventually these answers will be given to you.
Yeah, so what is your sort of methodology for locating and identifying speakers for the project? Do you have a systematic process of going, oh, we need someone from this language, and then you like send someone in the field to find someone, or is it more coincidental?
YouTube is coincidental, and that's what we mainly use is we allow people, anyone from around the world, as long as they have internet access, to send us videos of them speaking in their room. And most of our volunteers are actually one-time folks. They will just say, hey, I speak X language, and they send in a video. But because we are a collective of volunteers, we don't have the funding to like just send people out into the field. So with Kunto's case, he happened to be teaching English in Kalimantan, and there was a bunch of, his students all come from little tiny villages. So he went with them on trips, during the weekends and then interviewed these people. Yeah, so we'd love to get to that point if you know someone that has a big wallet. Yeah.
So I'm kind of a bit curious if some of these languages have not really been documented or identified. I mean, there is real value in being able to identify them and say that this is a unique language that's different from this other one. And so there's kind of a fundamental question, like how do you put these up there so that people can find them and relate them to other languages and tell them apart? And because otherwise, I mean, it's still of huge value, I guess, but it's just a bunch of videos, and it'd be nice to be like to kind of know what they are.
Yeah, and we agree with you. So Kunto actually recorded about 20 languages in Kalimantan, and only 4 of them were identifiable. Him and Daniel spent like weeks trying to find things through the ISO numbers and all these things that they have on online databases. And because they haven't found anything, they just can't publish them. And so they talk with the linguist board. So we have a board of directors, people that are helping with our grant writing and funding. And most of them are linguists, if I'm not mistaken. And so we take it up with them and say, hey, do you know a person that is an expert in this field? And we bring it to them. But we obviously don't want to be just this. Say that again? How would they identify the site if you can't actually put a name to it? By geographic location or on what basis? So we just put them on our Google Sheets and just wait until we get an answer or something like that. Yeah. But in the case of one of the videos earlier that we saw, we just put it out there because it's Vanuatu and it's known. It's from a certain island, so we can identify that. Yeah. There's a few questions up there somewhere.
Yes, I have a question and a comment. Congratulations on the nice work you're doing.
Thank you.
Now, my comment is going to be a little bit biased. I would like to see app. It's Amikumu, but they already have done a tremendous job recording among 7,000 languages with the ISO number. And the point is, how do you get who is near you that speaks the language that you want to learn? So perhaps you should consider a kind of collaboration. Yeah,
just shoot us an email. People will respond. And we're not opposed to working with people. Because this is a collective, this is not a Wikitongues mission. This is a human mission. So.
Hi again, I teleported. My question is to do with cultures. So one thing you repeated in your presentation was that, oh my God, people's cultures are important. And I understand you really value the language as a part of their culture. But what are you doing to save other aspects of their culture, since if their language dies out and they just convert to English and they sort of become westernized, how do you preserve those traditions? Maybe it might have to do with food or what they do around the dinner table or with friends, etc.
It's a very good question. And we do our best with that by asking them questions about their culture. And so that at least we have an audio recording of that. Now, obviously, since we're not always living with these people and these groups, you know, like there's only so much we can do. But that's why you're here, right? Yeah. Let's just put it at that. We can talk about that further as well. Yeah, I think we should talk.
Okay, so I'm from Amikumu, and I just want to say that we have actually talked before about collaboration, so that's already on the table.
Oh, hey, Chuck.
Hey. So, yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, as mentioned, we work with grassroots organizations like, you know, Polyglot Indonesia, so this is not, we are not at all opposed.
I just wanted to make a comment on, I don't know your name, but yeah, you made a comment about preserving cultures and languages, not just recording it, but making sure that the language community can continue to thrive. There's a lot of, I know I'm connected with missionaries, Christian missionaries who do this sort of thing, and what I've heard from them is that it's not only that the languages need to be, I mean, documenting the languages is important, but there has to be other things like empowering them to value their own language. Typically, when a language community is ready for it, they'll work with the language community to develop a writing system, but it's not imposed on them. It's something that they have to develop themselves, so that they own it. It's not something that someone else is telling them exactly what to do. And after that, there's like literacy projects, and when they see a Bible or something else in their own language, they're very convinced that their language and culture has worth. Yeah, so I just wanted to add to your comment. That's all.
Yeah, I think in adding to that, I think Wikitongues is more of a seed planter than a farmer. We're recording videos on YouTube, and they might seem very mundane and small, and the whole point is that somebody else that is in the community can reap our efforts, you know, and say, hey, like, I live in this area, or I know these people, or whatever. And then again, grassroots. Because again, we have lives. I live in New York City, and she lives here in Montreal. We don't work directly with indigenous groups on a regular basis, and to do things to get people to open up, to be okay with sharing their language, which they don't think is a language, it's a big job. So again, talk to me. Yes, one question up there. Sorry, middle finger. Oops.
Yeah, there we go. So since you said you're in New York City, do you know the Endangered Language Alliance people?
Yes,
yeah,
we also work with them, and yeah, they're doing great work.
Yeah, just because there's so many, like the linguistic diversity around New York City is so enormous. There's a lot of people that you can find there to work with.
Yeah. That's very true. There's actually languages that are no longer spoken in their native countries because they all left and have moved to places like New York or Brazil, or because there is actually Italian dialects in Brazil and Argentina that are no longer spoken in Italy, because there's just so much that is there. You just have to kind of dig through it. Yeah, but yeah, we work with the Endangered Language Alliance, and they're a lot more into documenting. So we kind of do our own thing, but of course we talk and say, hey, we discovered this, and send it over to them. Yeah. Any more questions? I forgot to ask if anyone does speak an endangered language or, minority language here. Yeah. What do you speak? Mongolian, nice. Yeah, that's definitely endangered. We should talk. I don't know if you've heard of Tribolingual. The founder, she's Mongolian, and she's trying to rediscover her Buryat roots. Yeah. So, and I should connect you with, Yanja Wintersol? Yanja? Yeah, Yanja. So she's I interviewed her for my podcast, but she has 2 world records in memory. Yeah, she's bomb. She's also part Buryat apparently. So, yeah.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, mind you not, I've been out of the country for 17 years, so I left when I was a kid. And maybe simply recap my day. That's what you guys want to hear. Тэгээд жишээл өнөөдөр өглөө би 7 цагт сэрсний дараа гэрээсээ гараад тэгээд одоо метроор яваад ийшээ ирсний дараа миний сайн найзтай уулзаад өдрийн голын иргэний хажууд нь өнгөрөөд яваад тэгээд цаахан өдрөөс хойш ингээд буцаа ийшээ ирээд тэгээд та бүхэндээ бүү нартай найзчинда.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So even saying Mongolian as a language is actually a big stretch too, because there's very different types of Mongolian, and then there's little tribal groups like the Tuvans and the Buryats, and it's endless. It truly is endless. And Kunto, he was telling me these stories of there's this one village that he ran into that's in a delta, and it's split in 3 parts, and depending on which part of the village, you speak a different language. One village, 3 languages. And they don't speak the other person's, but they understand and they speak in their own, and there's just so much beauty out there. Yeah. Cool. I mean, if you want to talk with me personally, I'm here. Jilin's also here. Middle finger again, sorry. Jilin's here. But we can also do some video recording outside. And if you know someone who knows someone who knows someone, get them to send us an email, and we can do some collaboration, like with Amikumu. Thanks, Chuck.